I just read an article in the Washington Post, and I'm going to say something that will probably ruffle feathers, and it shouldn't, because it's such fucking horseshit. And it's that emotional support animals are not only is it nonsense and it shouldn't exist, but it's inhumane. Okay? Ooh, imagine that. Um, since when the fuck is it their job to make us feel good? Like, are you fucking nuts? We've lived with them for however many tens of thousands of fucking years, um, and they've always worked, or for a very long time they've worked for us, worked with us. Okay, that's different than putting them in a human emotional box and asking them to fulfill our complex human emotional needs. It's not fair to the dog. Okay, the dog calms me down. I was reading in the article, some fucking lady, emotional support animals can be, it's not limited by species. So it could be like a parakeet. And she's like, and this was an example of a person who supposedly had a legitimate emotional support animal. And she's like, yeah, little Frankie, he licks my tears when I cry and I suffer from depression, anxiety. So do I. I don't fucking need a I don't need a fucking parakeet around. I just go in my room, beat off and take a nap. I don't, like fucking get on with it. I mean, it's just so fucked up, man, that we do that to dogs. Now look, here's the one exception I'll make. Is with veterans, PTSD, right? And guys, I get it. Like, you're fucked up. It's a horrible shit you went through. But understand that, pouring a lot of human emotion, negative emotion into a dog, expecting them to solve that isn't a great thing. But if their presence calms you down, that's great. And I just think that if you're a vet and you've been through combat, then you should just be allowed to take your dog wherever the fuck you want because you were at war. Like, that's just a privilege we should give to veterans, along with a whole slew of other shit. And that's different, but we should do away with the concept of emotional support animals. And if you wanted to retain it, say in the case of veterans, to make it valid, really the proper way to conceptualize it is the following. One, the dog's presence can calm you down. Slightly, maybe. All right, but the other thing is it should remind you that you have a duty to that dog, and you got to keep your shit together. It should be a calm dog that you don't have to worry about. But if you're getting like, you should look at the dog and say, dude, get it together. I got to take care of this dog. They're not there to take care of you. That's outrageous. It's just a fucking amazing. Now look, a working service dog is a radically different thing. That is a dog that's been deliberately trained, and it's a special dog genetically to do a task. And, training, it can be enjoyable for the dog, and certain kinds of dogs enjoy working. I mean, look, like Dewey, he's just a lot of Malinois. It's intrinsically rewarding for them to have things in their mouth. Service dogs, it's not like they're like slaves. Like that's what they were essentially bred for, is to fulfill a working purpose. They need a job. Okay, so that's a totally different universe, and it doesn't involve complex human emotion that they can never understand. Okay, animals have emotions, of course they do. That was something that was debated for a long time, which is absurd. But like, they're much, much simpler than ours, and God bless them for it. I mean, why? You start and this is a huge source of separation anxiety, people crying in front of their dogs, constantly loving the dog up because the dog makes them feel better. How about you consider the dog's needs over your own? And that's the primary problem. One of the biggest problems we're having with dogs in this country is that people don't place the needs of the dog over their own. And as a dog owner, I've always done that. And if I can fucking do something and you can't, through just effort, then I don't have a whole lot of empathy. but you're not considering the impact that might have on the dog. I mean, just imagine a mother with her child, and she was just holding on to him all the time, every time she felt anxious or sad. And I'm not delegitimizing mental health issues. I'm saying this is not a way to treat it. But imagine if a mother was heaping that onto her child, right? And that happens to kids, and it fucks them up. It's like that, but worse, because you're dealing with a different species that has. That's what the fuck is it? It's like they can't. They just can't even process it, and it bums them out. And it creates all kinds of neurotic issues, I think, in dogs. When just generally speaking, when you put them in a human emotional box, it's way too big of a box. It's too complex. It's too baroque. They're not gonna be comfortable in there. All right. Here's another thing: emotional support animals. And the article was about how Delta's cracking down on this, and good for them. All right, good for them. But they represent a danger to people, because these are not trained dogs. If you're going to do the emotional support thing, we're going to legitimize it. There should be strict training requirements. So they should be trained at the same level as a working service dog. Otherwise, sorry. Your pet is if your pet represents a liability to people or other service dogs that actually, guide dogs for the blind, then I'm sorry if he makes you feel better on a flight to Cancun. You're going to have to deal with it. Take a Xanax. I don't know what to tell you. And by the way, it's almost never legitimate. People just lie because they want to bring their dogs places. I mean, that's pretty standard. But man, if your dog isn't trained at a very, very high level, you have no business bringing them in places where dogs aren't allowed, and shame on you. And that should be codified. That should be put into law. Because if the dog is a liability, and the needs of the general public, the broader community, need to be prioritized over the supposed needs of one individual. So I just think it's gross. It's really, really horrible, and shame on you if you do it. I would possibly consider doing it myself, but only with a dog that was trained very close to a service dog level of just perfect obedience, great temperament. You know what I mean? I wouldn't just fucking take some yappy little dog on an airplane or train or something. It's crazy. But here's the big problem, and it's that these dogs have gone after service dogs. I had a girl on Facebook. She's a great service dog that got attacked. Then the service dog, who's either a guide dog for the blind, or they perform a task, open doors, whatever. Now that dog's fucked up. You know how expensive those things are? I mean, like 30, 40, 50,000 bucks. They take 2 years to train. It's fucking insane. And now because of some idiot, and this happens frequently, where emotional support animals have attacked working service dogs. And now the person who has a legitimate disability is fucked. Another thing that happened on the Delta plane was a guy who was coming in to sit down at a seat. The fucking idiot lady got a middle seat instead of the window. I mean, talk about just a total lack of appreciation for the existence of anyone else. You couldn't even imagine beforehand, that might be inconvenient for everyone else. I like to stretch out in the middle, So he tried to pass by. The dog lunged at his face. The guy got I think it was 30 stitches in his face. Attack went on for 30 seconds or so, they said, which might as well be an hour in terms of relative time when you go through a dog attack. But so he was all fucked up from it, and that shit happened. Dogs shitting, and the other thing is people bring all kinds of species onto planes, which is totally unimaginable. A fucking duck. They had a picture of a duck. But it gets back to the whole, really, at the core of the issue is whether or not the concept of an emotional support animal is legitimate. And I'll link another article from the Post in the description that makes it pretty clear that there is very modest, negligible empirical evidence that it has any real effect on people's mental health, that they're effective in any way. They don't really serve a purpose. And I think we should do away with the concept because it's very damaging to dogs. Basically, it just implies that they're here to serve our emotional needs, that there are emotional slaves. And it's one of the most quotidian forms of abuse, I think. And you find it in different forms, different levels of severity across the entire spectrum. Always makes them suffer. And it's just so wrong. It's just morally bankrupt, intellectually bankrupt. There's no justification for it, in my view, except for vets. And I just think we should consider that a privilege that veterans just get. But I think we should try to make them understand, like the dog, he's not there to fill that whatever's going on inside, and just be aware of that. Fucking military people are typically not that selfish. They'll pick that up, So that's the only allowance I'd make. And if you got anxiety, you're gonna have to figure out a different cure, because even if the dog helps you, you're hurting the dog. Oh no, he likes it. I don't care what you say. I don't. My dog doesn't mind. He likes it. Really? Well, how is he when you're not around? Right? Does he go fucking crazy because he has horrible separation anxiety? Is he reactive? How is he with other people or dog? You know what I mean? Like, he's got some shit. I guarantee you, if you've got a dog like that and he's helping you, which he isn't. So consider the needs of the dogs. Consider the needs of service dogs, disabled people. You're hurting disabled people. How fucking dare you? And consider that, the people who do this shit, they don't care about other people. That's essentially what it is. But what I'm calling into question is the whole concept. So I'll link the article. It has studies in it. Look through it if you want. But the whole notion of emotional support animals is bullshit. It's harmful to dogs, people, disabled people, service dogs. It's terrible. And it needs to be totally done away with. And vets, if you want to have a dog because they make you feel better, go right ahead. And bring them wherever you want. But let's call them something else.